This is a small grains demo by Medius.Re, where we'll look at 4 variety selection methods using data available through NC State's use of Medius.Re. So the first way that we're going to find a variety is just simply through find a variety. Typically, if you're a grower or you're an extension agent, you've probably experienced where someone came to you with a variety recommendation and you don't know anything about the variety and you want to be able to distribute that information or find data related to that variety. So simply all you would have to do is, if let's say someone came to you and said, hey, I want to grow Shirley. What do you know about Shirley? Just come in, start typing what you know, and then go ahead and click on the variety. What that'll do is it'll pull up the summary modal for you, where you'll see where this variety has been tested within your program and what years it was tested in, as well as you can have a feature image that would show you a quick snapshot of what that variety looks like. And then if you have it linked to a text sheet, you can do that as well. You can pull in a PDF here, or in this case it's just linked to the actual website from the seed grower. Each one of these variety attributes is customizable to the client, but typically what you'll see in here is you can select things like what seed company, whether or not it's available, and any of these attributes or characteristics that you want to apply to the variety as a whole. And these would be beneficial when searching for varieties or trying to know more about a variety. The next tab here will show us trials, and this is a summary of all of the data that's available within Medius.Re for your license that has to do with this variety Shirley. And so it summarizes it grouped by these different regions. And these regions, again, are customizable, and you can set those up when you initiate your license. Same as with all the data fields here. All of these data fields are customizable as well. So you can see that looking at this particular variety Shirley, that I've got some average yield values here across these different regions and a label indicating that that's bushels per acre. If I wanted to know more about that average, simply just click on that value and you can see the breakdown here of each of those values that make up this average. So this is a good quick way to get a glance or an insight into the performance of a variety and consider whether or not you want to dig deeper and find more information about it. Another tab you'll see up here is images, and so as your trial data continues to grow, it can either be an image or a video, as that is added to not only the variety but also to the trials. You'll see this populate with thumbnails of images as well, so you can easily just click on that. In this particular case it's a video, so you can walk through and see that video of this particular variety. So that is the quick find a variety, where someone has come to you with a name of the variety and you know what the name is, so you're searching for it. The other option then is you're going to try to query to find this variety. So you're looking for specific characteristics that that you need in a variety. Now you can set your trial years. It'll default to a 3 years, or we can go and expand that out to all of the years that you have data available for. So I'm going to go ahead here, and we're looking for where we're going to have some good yield. So I'm looking for something that's going to be over 100 bushels per acre. And I can see here in the brackets that I'm getting a min and a max of the values that are available within the platform for this particular data field. So I know what my range is. And then I also want to search for something based on test weight, and I want that to be over 59 pounds per bushel. And then all I have to do is go ahead and hit search. So now what I see here is I've easily curated a list of 6 varieties that match these parameters here for me. So I've been able to narrow that down. Now remember, this is the total average for these varieties. So these varieties may have performed better or worse in particular trials, but we're just looking for how did this perform overall on average across all of these years that we have selected here. Now what I could do is I could go ahead and I could just click on one of these individually if I wanted, and I would get that same summary modal that we looked at earlier. But I'm going to go ahead and jump to a different method for analyzing the data, and that is to compare. And so if I go ahead and click on compare here, what that's going to do is it's going to build a new table with all 6 of those varieties for me. And I'm going to get the option to look at those varieties side by side. So now I have all the varieties up here, and you can see that I've got my filter parameters that tell me this is how I got to this selected list here. And now I can look at them and how they compare side by side. And if I'm interested, I could rearrange those two as well. So I could come here and say, okay, I want, group those two up there, and just rearrange this however it would see fit. And as you rearrange here, then these columns change over here to try to help you do better comparisons. And again, similarly to the modal that you saw earlier when we were looking at one variety, you can go ahead and click on this average value, and you can see all the values that make up that average, the breakdown. If you wanted to look at that across the entire row, you can go ahead and click on the data field here, and now it's going to break this down for me by trial for each variety. So you can see, interestingly enough here, there's some varieties that are tried more than others in different regions. So we're not necessarily, in this case, always comparing a variety when it existed in the same trial. That's also evident up here as variety records are differing. So if you had a scenario where the varieties did exist within the same trial, I could come up here and turn on correlated data if that was something that was important to you. And that would only return the results where each of these varieties was in the same trial. That way you're comparing more apples to apples, where it was the variety was tested under the same environmental stresses. So this is a quick way to do a compare, and there are a whole bunch of other different features that are available that you can explore, from filtering to exporting to sharing to marking up. You can jump into images, but this gets you started here in comparing these varieties. So another method, let's look at the third method now, is I can actually jump right into the trial data directly. So I'm going to come over here to wheat and expand out commercial, and then each one of these trial groups will have a trials and an analytics page. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the trials page, and this is going to show me a list of trials for the years that I have selected. And you can go ahead and go back and select as many years as you want and get a list of all of those trials. So I'm going to go ahead and select this Tidewater Beaufort location trial, and it's going to go ahead and pull that data, and I see that I've got 57 records here available. So now here you have all of the raw data that's available from that trial here for you to sort, to compare, whatever you need to do in this view. And you can simply sort by just clicking on the column header, and now I can easily find here's my highest yielding variety for this trial. And then again, in here you have options to do filtering and comparing. So I could toggle this filter, and I could say that, all right, I'm only interested in finding varieties where the yield is greater than 38.7. So I have this range now of 38.7 to 62. And you'll notice that we just filtered down from 57 variety records down to 31 variety records. And I can do the same thing here too by adding test weight and keep increasing this value. And as you see, as I change those parameters, the filters that occur over here are dynamically happening. So if these were the parameters that we were looking for, now we're narrowed it down to 16 varieties in this particular trial. So the last method for making your data work for you, and again, we're just doing a high-level flyover of the different features available here in Medius.Re, is going to be analytics. So I'm going to go ahead and here under analytics for wheat, under commercial, I'm going to set my trial year to be 2020. That is the last trial year data that we have for wheat. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the data fields that we want. So we've been talking about yield and we've been talking about test weight, right? So I've got those selected, and now it's asking me to go ahead and rebuild the analytics. During this time, it's going to go fetch that data, and then it's going to perform the analytic calculations, build the table, and render it for you. And as you can see, it happened before I could even finish talking about all the things that it was going to do. Obviously, the more varieties that you're going to pull back, the longer that process will take. But we're very intentional about making sure that we're rendering data as quickly as possible for you so that you can be getting the answers that you're looking for without too much hassle. So let me kind of explain what we're looking here in the analytics view. And I think as you get to know the tool and you learn it, a lot of people, this tends to be their favorite part of the tool because it gives you a lot of information, but in an easy way to understand once you know everything that's going on. So first we have all of your data fields that you've selected here at the top, and you can go ahead and you can toggle between the yield and the test weight that we've selected. We've got all of the varieties that were available to be tried in 2020, and then we have each of the trial sites that are broken down here with their regions that they're a part of. And so these are the actual values that existed in the trial. Then we have this 2020 averages here for each one of the regions, so I can see what that average was for the variety over the region, and then also see what it was for statewide. So the entire, all the regions together, the entire state, what that average was. And then lastly over here, we've got a 3-year average. And that average can be changed. You can configure this to be as many years as you want in the average. You can turn averaging off. That option is up to you. But we have, by default here, a lot of people prefer to just have a 3-year average. And so I'm looking at the 3-year average for each one of these locations, as well as the 3-year average across the entire state. And then you'll see these little Y and L values. And what that tells you is when you see a Y, that's how many years of data is represented in that average. And the L is how many locations is represented in that average. So some of these ones here at the top, you see that there was only 1 year. So as a result, the 3-year average is obviously equal to the single year average because it only existed for 1 year. But then you can see some of these other ones had all 3 years of the 3-year average that we're looking for. So at this point, you can click on any one of these lower headers here. And let's say we were interested in finding the highest performing yield in Union for 2020. I can go ahead and sort by that. And now what I'm looking at here is these varieties sorted based on these yield values for Union. And so just to give you some indication of what's going on with these colors, as you can see down in the legend below, you have max is green, so the maximum value for that column is going to be green, and the minimum value for that column is going to be red. And then anything that is above average is going to be a gradient shade of blue, and anything that is below average will be that gradient shade of like a yellowish orange. And then anything that's the true average, like this example here, will just be clear or gray. There won't be any shading applied to it. So the darker the shading, the further away the value is from the mean, and the lighter the shading, the closer that value is to the mean. So you can do the same thing, not just with a particular site, but you could do that for your 3-year average across the entire state. So here we have an example where I have these are my top yielders across the entire state over a multi-year trial period. And now I'm going to go ahead and select, let's say we wanted to select some top 5 varieties that we thought would be great to be able to share with a grower or to pass on to whoever's asking for this information. Let's say if you're like an extension agent, I can go ahead and I can just select these varieties. So I'm going to grab this one because it looks good because it was in a 3-year trial. This one was good. It's in a 3-year trial. This one is good in a 3-year trial. And then I'm going to grab this one as well in a 3-year trial. So I can see I have 4 selected. And you know, this Agramax variety here, even though it was only in its first year, it might be interesting. So I'll go ahead and select that. And then I'm thinking, well, you know, I don't want to be too picky here. You know, this is another good yielder and it was in for 2 years. Let's go ahead and select this variety as well. So I've now gone ahead and I've selected, 6 varieties. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? I've grown this variety before, this USG variety. I want to include this one as well in my comparison. So now I've got 7 varieties selected here to compare. And I can come up here to compare selected varieties now. And what this is going to do is going to take those varieties, much like we did earlier when we were querying, and it's now going to list them out here for me and give them to me in this compare view. So I can look at these varieties side by side. So those are 4 different ways that you can find information about a variety pretty quickly. And hopefully that intrigues you in how you can improve your variety selection process.